So, first of all, my appreciation to the team that enacted this drama. So, I have been seeing different versions of this drama over the last 25 years since I was introduced. So, two observations. First is that the drama is becoming sophisticated and the distractions are becoming even more sophisticated. So, it is difficult. So I will talk today about the three broad principles. So first, we all saw based on this drama, and we also get a sense that there is something inside us that seems to work against us. So we will talk first about the nature of the mind. And then I will talk about the nurture of the mind. Nature means why is the mind the way it is? And nurture is how can we change the mind? I'll be using this as a whiteboard. Okay, it's not it covered. Okay. So I'll talk about nature of the mind and then second point, nurture of the mind. And within nurture, I'll talk about two principles and we look at the various Bhagavad Gita verses which address this point. So, in nature also, I'll talk about two distinct points. Okay, good. So, we'll look at the position of the mind and we look at the disposition of the mind. Position means what exactly is the mind and why does it act the way it does. The position and the disposition. And then we look at two principles for the nurture of the mind, which I'll come to a little later. So first, what is the position of the mind? So the Gita explains that the mind is our interface with the world. Shotram chakshus parshanam cha rasanam ghranam eva cha adhishtaya manaschayam vishayan upasevate. So if we consider, the Gita explains we are all souls. The soul looks at the world through the mind. So the mind is like a screen. Now on the screen, inputs come in from our senses. Say we have 5 knowledge acquiring senses, Jnanendriyas. Does anyone know which are the Jnanendriyas? Eyes, yes. Then ears, then yes, from nose we get smell, fragrances, aromas. Then tongue, from which we get taste. Skin, from which we get touch. Now among these two are among the most powerful. If you see most movies, they center on these two, vision and sound, and through that they captivate us. So basically from each of these, inputs are coming into the mind. So the mind is our link with the outer world. So its position is that, okay, this is also, are we doing something about it right now? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shotram chakshus parshanam cha rasanam ghranam eva cha adhishtayam nischayam vishayan upasevate. Hare Krishna. Okay. I think this is better, isn't it? Okay, thank you. So now, so the mind's position is basically if we consider this is the outer world. So our mind is our link with the outer world. And now the position of the mind is that it is inside us, right next to us. Like you saw in the drama, there's this person who was right next to the character. So that like the mind is next to us. It's inside us. So in our inner being, we could say if this is the self, at the core of the self is the soul. Then there is the mind. And then here there are the senses, which are our pathways to the outer world. So the mind is basically our link. Now the problem is that if say I have these glasses, my glasses are my link with the outer world. I perceive the world with my glasses. But if these glasses are dusty, then what I perceive will be unclear. If the glasses are tainted, say they are tainted, everything will seem red. So, similarly for us, our mind, while it is meant to be our link with the outer world, but it is not a transparent link. It does not see the world as it is. So it distorts. So if you see, the mind is like our link or our lens, but it often distorts the picture. And how does it distort? Well, for different people, there might be different specific distortions. Say, for example, somebody is very much tempted by alcohol. Then, they may be in class, they're looking at their professor, and suddenly the professor's body changes into an alcohol bottle. So, what happens is that the specific distortion that the mind does varies depending on what kind of indulgences the person has done, what the person has enjoyed in the past, what kind of habits the person has. But basically, it does distortion. And to understand how the mind distorts, we'll go to another section of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is what Krishna talks about in 15.8 and 9 in the Gita. He talks about the nature of how the mind functions, or rather how it is meant to function. See, it's important to understand that the mind is not our enemy. What is our enemy is what is inside our mind. So, the mind is not our enemy, but what is inside our mind is the enemy. That means, from a functional perspective, we all need a mind. It's like if my glasses are distorting things, I throw away my glasses. I'll practically become blind. So, see, we saw in the drama also, initially the mind had to be pushed away. But eventually, the mind also became a friend. So it's important for us to understand that functionally, we need the mind. The mind is a tool for perception. It's not intrinsically bad, but it is conditionally bad. Because of some conditionings within it, it is bad. So we could say the mind is like, this is a standard example, you have probably heard this before, that if we consider the soul, the mind and the body. If we have a device, say if we have a computer, this is like the user, the software and the hardware. Now the hardware itself is not a bad thing. The hardware is necessary. But if the hardware is corrupted, then that can lead to a lot of problems. So not the hardware. What is corrupted? Software, yeah. The hardware can also get corrupted, but that's relatively rare. Software getting corrupted. So now when the mind distorts, what we want to do is we want to correct the distortion. And to understand how the mind distorts, it's to understand the nature of the mind, we have to look to some extent at the nature of pleasure. Because the mind is by nature pleasure seeking. Now the Gita talks about this in 18:36 to 39. I'll focus on two verses among these because they draw a very good contrast. The Gita says that there are certain things which, this is not your electrode PN, this is poison and nectar. So Krishna says that in this world we can have constructive happiness. This is sattvic happiness. And then we can have destructive happiness. That is rajasic happiness. So the Gita explains that there are things in this world which initially taste like nectar, but eventually they turn out to be poison. And conversely, there are things which initially taste like poison, but eventually they taste like nectar. So for example, when we have to study for an exam, and that time, just watching a movie or playing some video game, that seems so easy. That seems like nectar. But then the result of that is that, our career gets ruined. We do terribly in the exams. And we basically waste our life by that. Even if somebody is wealthy enough, I don't care for any exams. I got my parents' business to work. Okay, that's okay. But still, ultimately, if a person does not learn to look for long-term things, they are going to waste their life. So, the point is, if we are here and our mind is here, this is the Atma, the soul, this is the mind. So the nature of the mind is that it looks only at this and it doesn't look at this at all. Okay, you have to sit and meditate, you have to chant something. This is so boring. Who's going to do this? Do you wake up early in the morning? Come on. It's so difficult. Why do it? You want to become healthier, you want to exercise, you want to regulate our diet. Come on, it's too much trouble. So it looks only at the initial poison and it says forget it. So everything that is constructive in our life, the mind's disposition is to look at the initial difficulty. Say, this is too much, I don't want to do this. And conversely, what the mind also does it, with respect to destructive pleasures, it only looks at the initial nectar. Hey, this is so nice. But what comes after it? It just doesn't look at it. Once a smoker told his friend, yesterday I read an article about how dangerous smoking is. I immediately took action. Really? This friend had been telling his friend for a long time to stop smoking. Really? What action did you take? I stopped reading the article. So, what happens is that anything that shows the mind the poison that is going to come afterwards, forget it. I don't want to see it. I just want to see the immediate nectar. So this is just the disposition of the mind. That it will look at the immediate nectar, yattad agre amritopamam pariname vishamiva. It will just look at the immediate nectar and say, I want this. And what about the immediate poison, eventual poison? The mind will just come up with some excuses. See, there are always excuses that we can come up with. We can all misuse our intelligence for that purpose. You tell someone, okay, you smoke and you may get lung cancer. He says, okay, so many people don't smoke and get lung cancer also. And so many people smoke and don't get lung cancer. Well, there are exceptions and there are explanations for the exceptions. But there is a general pattern. And the exceptions, the understanding is that somebody may have more positive karma from their past. So their actions don't immediately lead to results for them. But the exceptions are not meant to become excuses. They're exceptions. Everybody will eventually be held accountable. So, what the mind just refuses to look at the consequences. Say it looks for exceptions. Now, are exceptions there? Yes, they are there. But what the mind does it makes the exceptions into excuses. But we may give excuses, but life is not going to excuse us. It's like, see, any unhealthy habit that a person indulges in. Some people may just be very talented, and that's why they may spend a lot of time watching movies and doing all kinds of things, just wasting time. And then maybe just before the exam they study and they do well, reasonably well. And say, okay, this person is talented. But what does that mean? If that person would not have wasted that much time, they could have done so much better. Isn't it? So, now everybody else may not have that talent. Others may suffer more than them. So, the point is that there is a starting point for everyone. Like if somebody jumps out of a helicopter without any parachute, well, then somebody will have to count their bones afterwards. Isn't it? Now, somebody may be at a 100 feet height, somebody may be at a 1 kilometer height. If somebody is at a 1 kilometer height, it may take some time for them to fall. And during that time, hey, I am enjoying the sight. Well, you may enjoy the sight, but afterwards people will not enjoy your sight. Isn't it? So, sometimes there are exceptions. Somebody has gone higher, the consequences may not come immediately. But consequences do come. So, the point I am making over here is, for some people, and I say this, it is that I talked about this principle of nectar and poison. For some people, there may seem to be a lot of nectar, and the poison may come later. For some other people, the nectar may be lesser. But the point is, the nectar will always be followed by poison, sooner or later. Now the mind just refuses to see this. So I talked about 2 points till now, the position and the disposition with respect to the nature of the mind. The position is that it is our link with the world. But the disposition is that it distorts our perception of the world. It looks only at the initial nectar in destructive pleasures and overlooks the poison. And it conversely looks at the initial poison in constructive pleasures. Any good habits we want to develop, it looks at the initial poison and says, too much, forget it, not worth it. And it keeps us away. So, what do we do about this? That's where I'll talk about, I said, nature of the mind. What was the other point? Nurture of the mind. So, in nurture of the mind, Krishna says 2 principles. He talks about this in 6:35 and 36. And he says, Abhyasa and Vairagya. Now, I'll explain what this means in terms of the same metaphor. So, Abhyas we can translate as persistence. Persistence means keep doing something. Vairagya means abstinence. I don't know abstinence if you have heard this word. Abstain means to not do something. So abstinence. We avoid doing something. So let's try to understand again in the terms of the same metaphor over here. Here there is constructive happiness. How is it? What is there initially? Poison, then nectar, yes. And then there is destructive happiness. What is its nature? Nectar and then poison. So now, what these 2 principles mean? I am here, my mind is here. So now, what Krishna is saying is, with respect to this, let me put it this way, with respect to this, we need persistence. persistence to push through the initial poison till we get to the nectar. And we will all get to the nectar. Now, how to persist, I'll talk about that. On the other hand, what Krishna says over here is, with respect to this, abstinence. Now, interestingly, what happens is that through persistence and through abstinence, when the mind's nurture is changed, when the mind is nurtured, what happens is, over a period of time, we will find that the poison here will start becoming smaller and the nectar will start becoming bigger. And conversely, here we'll start seeing that the nectar has become smaller. Now, what that means is, we will start seeing, yeah, there is some nectar over here, but that's just an appearance. After that, there is a lot of trouble over here. There's a lot of poison. And when this vision changes, then it will become much easier. So, persistence, it is not just initially it appears, oh, I have to keep pushing through this poison every day, one day, second day, third day, how long do I do this? But that is the magic of habits. See, the mind functions based on its impressions. And the impressions change. The same thing which initially was difficult starts becoming easier. And that's how the poison starts decreasing. On the other hand, when we stop doing something, like if we consider somebody is an alcoholic, somebody is a drunkard. Now, there are people who are drunk and they are aware they are drunk. No. What that means is, I spent almost 7-8 months outside India doing college outreach and other programs in America, Australia, UK. So, I go to colleges, and in the West, drinking is extremely common. It's just a part of life. In fact, there's one Western thinker in double quotes. He said, the taste of wine is the proof that God loves us. Now, if God didn't love us, how could something as delicious as wine exist? And there are hundreds of other delicious things that exist. But the point is that drinking is a very common part of their culture. And it has come to India also. It is there in India also. But the point is, it's very common over there. And their common idea is that drink but don't become drunk. Now it's like you go to the edge of a big mountain cliff, look down, bend as far as you can but don't fall down. Well, why take the risk? But anyway, say for example, if a group of 6 kids are going to a party, then they're going to drink in that party. They're driving by car. So then what they decide is, in advance, they decide that, okay, today it is your turn to practice vairagya. Why? Because you're going to drive us. So today you do the sacrifice. The next party I will do the sacrifice. So what they basically, some people are drunk and at least they are aware that they are drunk. Or they are aware that drinking is enjoyment, but they have that awareness that drinking and driving is bad. So they won't drink and drive. But some people are so drunk that they are unaware they are drunk. Sometimes some person may go to a bar and there is no bar to their drinking. They just keep drinking and drinking and drinking. And then after the bartender, self may say, sir, should I call a cab for you? Get lost. Nothing is wrong with me. That person can't even speak properly and I think I'm perfectly fine. So that is a very severe state of drunkenness. When somebody is very drunk, they lose awareness that they are drunk. But if they somehow come upward, then what happens is they start realizing that there is a problem with drinking. Now, their life may be filled with problems, but somehow it doesn't register in them as long as they are too drunk. Like two friends had gone to a bar once, and one of them was drinking way too much. The other person said, I think drinking so much is not a good idea. It's a great idea, get lost. And the next morning, his first friend who had drunk a lot, he woke up and the other friend heard him muttering, it's a terrible idea. I knew it was a terrible idea. And immediately he went to this guy. See, I told you, drinking so much was a terrible idea. He says, no, drinking was a great idea. Waking up was a terrible idea. So, what happens is, if a person is very drunk, they just don't understand the gravity of the problem of drinking. But they become a little sober, then they start realizing, hey, I made a mess of things. Maybe I spoke something stupid while I was drunk, maybe I did something, I drove while drunk, I got fined, whatever. So, then that person starts realizing. So, the point I'm making is abstinence. That if there is even a little abstinence, then we start seeing the poison. If there is no abstinence, we don't even see the poison. It's like a person is drunk, and as soon as they become high and the problems because of drinking start coming in their life, the solution is, let's drink again. That's what the mind does. One problem has come, we saw in the drama, hey, studies is boring. So let's just watch movies, let's play video games, let's do this, let's do that. And then you make a mess of your exams. Then what happens is, let's drink. And then, okay, now drinking also doesn't solve the problem. Now your career is ruined. Let's end your life. So what the mind does is, the mind somehow finds some excuses to not feel the poison. So ending the life is a way of not feeling the poison. Now of course, we will feel the poison after death. The soul doesn't end, soul's existence doesn't end. But what happens is, the mind makes us do activities which will lead from nectar to poison. But then it makes us somehow believe that we can dodge the poison. And then how do you dodge the poison? By drinking more. Or by doing something else to escape. And that's why the nature of anything like drinking is that some people may be able to drink and not get drunk. But for most people, the danger is there. They just glide down. Because it soon becomes an escape way. Escape way that after the nectar, the poison comes. But as soon as the poison comes, I want the nectar again. So let me drink next time. And next time, more drinking. And in that way, the person becomes more and more drunk. So, but what happens to us is, if we just abstain a little bit, say if you have a friend who is say an alcoholic, then you can see how much of a mess of their life they are making. If you can see that, so much of unnecessary wastage of money, wastage of time, a risk to health, risk to reputation, risk to relationships. So when we are outside, when we are sober, we can see the poison. But that person, even when they feel the poison, their solution is, get the nectar again, will not feel the poison. But that is dukh aushadam tadapi dukkham. That is a solution that is worse than the problem. That's why, what is that saying? First, the drinker takes a drink. Then, the drink takes a drink. That means what happens is, the poison from the first, to dodge that, I want more. And then, the drink takes the drinker. That means the person becomes completely caught in that unhealthy habit. So this is the tragic degeneration. Now, we may think, oh, I can enjoy the initial initial nectar, I won't get the poison. It doesn't work like that. We may escape the poison for some time. Say, as I said, if somebody has a lot of money, they may squander a lot of money, a lot of drinking, and they say, what's the problem? But nobody has infinite money. Eventually, it's going to end. So like that, some people may have some positive karma from the past, because of which the nectar may not lead to poison immediately, but it will come to everyone. So abstinence. So what does persistence do? Persistence, when we are able to push on in something. Initially they said, this is difficult, this is impossible. I just can't do this. Say you tell them that they have used to waking up at 10 o'clock in the morning and just rush off to work. Tell them wake up at 4 o'clock. He says, 4 o'clock? That's like midnight. Who wakes at 4 o'clock? It's impossible. For them the poison feels so much that I just can't do it. And yes, the poison is there. But that poison is followed by nectar. That means any healthy habit that you try to develop, that initially is poison. Say it's a small children, they may just want to play all the time. And the parents say study. They don't like to study. For them it's like poison. We all gone through that phase. Now what happens is, now Indian parenting is sometimes a little too overbearing. Sometimes. But I've been in the West, and the Western parenting is extremely hands-off. So what happens is, the kids, if they don't want to study, parents say, it's your life, don't study. Well, it may seem like nectar in the beginning. But what's going to happen when the children grow up? It's difficult. It's difficult for them. Indians in America are considered the model minority. We are minority in the sense, but they are the model minority because Indians have the lowest divorce rate in America. Indians have the highest income. Indian kids are always well educated. No Indian depends on welfare. No Indians are very responsible. So they are considered ideal citizens. And one of the reasons for this is that, in one sense, Indian parents push their children to go through the poison to the nectar. Now, I'm not generalizing in the sense that I'm not saying all Western parents are bad, but that is the general attitude. Okay, it's your life. You do what you want. See if it works. I have a pen here. Let's put this for charging, the other one. Okay. It's not working. This charger is not here. Okay, just see if it connects. If it doesn't, leave it. Yeah, I'll complete without this. So, the point is that there is this initial poison, but from that the nectar comes. So say we may not like to as a child may not like to study, but the child learns alphabet. The child learns, okay, this is my name. This is how I write my name. When we learn to read, when we learn to write, a whole new universe opens for us. And say now, if we meet somebody who can't read or write, what we feel is they're missing so much. Well, it was difficult initially, but that nectar that poison eventually leads to nectar. Somebody is, say, very sick, maybe they had a fracture. When they want to recover, it's not easy recovering. It's a painful, but when they do the exercise and they recover, they regain the mobility. The exercise and the regimen is like poison, but eventually the nectar comes. And so for that, like that, in every good thing that we try to do, the poison that is there initially, with time, the poison decreases. Say initially maybe waking up early in the morning may be very difficult for us. But if we just keep doing it, if there is persistence, by that persistence, not only do we reach the nectar beyond the poison, but we also decrease the size of the poison. Till eventually the poison becomes very small. And that is when our life becomes transformed. So, once we start perceiving the nectar that comes beyond the poison on the side of constructive pleasures, and we start seeing the poison that comes after the nectar in destructive pleasures, then the healthier choice becomes relatively easier. So when the mind starts, its vision changes, that's when we actually become transformed. That's when our mind becomes our friend. And that is the key to self-transformation. The journey that was depicted over there, that journey is possible for every one of us. But that is possible through this gradual process of abstinence and persistence. So I'll talk about 2 points and I'll conclude. By the way, excuse me, can you connect a laptop to this projector and then we can connect my second tab by Zoom to the laptop? Then we can do that. So I'll talk about one key for abstinence and one key for persistence. All this may sound easy or not easy to understand. I feel it is not easy to apply. Sorry. Yeah, but it will not charge so fast. It will take some time.
So on the phone you will. So how you will write?
No, I will use this tab. Okay. Just connect this to Zoom. Okay. Set up a Zoom over there. Connect the two on Zoom. Okay. So I'll talk about how do we make persistence easier, how to make abstinence easier. So the key, let's start with the positive. The key to make persistence easier is purposefulness. It is reminding ourselves why we are doing what we are doing. Many times we may start doing something and we feel I just don't have enough determination. Well, it's possible, but rather than looking at determination, we can take a step backward. Am I convinced that it is worth it? If for persistence, if we just have a purpose, we all think we are pleasure seeking. And yes, we are pleasure seeking. But we want something more than pleasure in our life. We want a life of purpose. We want a life of value. We want a life of meaning. So, for example, say, how many of you like humor? How many of you like humor? Well, so many of you don't like humor. Maybe it's you don't understand my question. Okay. So I would say most of us, if you don't like humor, then I don't like you. So there can of course be inappropriate humor. There is sarcastic humor. There are double entendres and other things like that. But the point is, humor is like, who doesn't like to laugh? Say, we may like to watch some comedy shows sometimes, just get some laughs. But suppose somebody told you tomorrow, from tomorrow onwards, you have no financial obligations, you have no family obligations, you have no any kind of obligation at all. I will take care of everything for you. You just have to do one thing. From morning to night, for the rest of your life, just watch comedy shows. Now, would we enjoy that? Well, maybe for a few hours. We are really frustrated with life for a few days. But after that, I want to do something. Isn't it? It's just a laugh. Laughing becomes boring after some time. Isn't it? Because we don't just want pleasure. We want meaningful pleasure. We want our life to have some value. We want to have some purpose that we are living for. And through that purpose, when we get some pleasure, that is actually really meaningful. So for persistence, the key is to be purposeful. Purposeful means that try to see what is a bigger purpose that we can serve. So each one of us, we all have been given certain gifts by God. And those gifts, if we use them properly, we can do good for ourselves, we can do good for the world. And we are, each one of us, our existence has value. So some people may take a specific purpose. I want to become an engineer, I want to become a doctor, I want to become this. That's fine. But okay, after you become an engineer, after you become a doctor, what? What are we going to do? A purpose is not so much a destination as a direction. A purpose is not so much of attaining some valuables. A degree is a valuable. A purpose is more about living according to some values. Say for example, I may say the purpose of my life is to make a difference in the world. Make a positive difference in the world. That could be through any job, any role. It could be in my family, it could be in my social circle, it could be in my professional circle, whatever it is. So when we have that purpose, then okay, that initial poison that becomes bearable. Suppose somebody wants to be an athlete, and then athlete means they have to do some workout. Workout is not always enjoyable. It's the word uses workout, but for most people it is just work that knocks them out. They feel like that. But then, if the purpose is strong enough for them, then they can bear that poison. So similarly for us, when you want to persist, the key is that what is it that I want to achieve? So purposefulness, and this purposefulness becomes much easier.
Some devotees will read,
Okay.
but it is coming vertical.
That's interesting. Okay, doesn't. You tried changing his portrait or something? Okay. Okay. So, thank you. So, to persist, what I talk about is persistence becomes easier when it is purposeful. So, why do I want to do this? When we have a bigger vision of that. And that is where bhakti spirituality can help us understand that our existence is not just by chance. We are not just alone struggling in this big bad world. Each one of our lives has a purpose. So, once we get this understanding, the Gita explains that we are parts of Krishna. And what that means is, we have parts in Krishna's plan. That each one of us, there is a plan for our life. And purpose becomes much easier to cultivate. Param drishtva nivartate. And then that persistence. So, wherever I am, if I can persist 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, my existence can have so much more value for myself and for others. That is the key to purposefulness. It's not just willpower, but it's purposefulness. What is the higher purpose that I want to pursue through my life? And then, what is the other thing that we need to do? Abstinence. So there is nectar initially, but poison. So what we need to do is, we need to be able to see this poison, then we will be able to abstain from it. So abstinence, vairagya. Now this becomes easier when we, rather than thinking again, I have to have willpower, I will not do this, I will not do this, I will not do this, I will not do this. See, whenever we're thinking, I will not do this, there is no pleasure in that. It's only a sense of deprivation. So the mind will come quietly, I will not do this, I will not do this. It will come with the eraser and erase the not. I'll not do this, I'll not do this, I'll not do this, I'll do this. So it becomes like that. So even when we are focusing on abstinence, our focus cannot be on simply saying no. What happens is, if you are saying no, it creates a sense of deprivation. And nobody wants to feel deprived. So here, the key is artful. Artful means that we have to be intelligent in understanding ourselves better. If the word artful is not very careful, intelligent, let's make it thoughtful. I'll explain the relationship between the two. Thoughtful means what? See, basically, we all have, say, some unhealthy craving. Say we may have craving to just spend too much time on social media, just watch too many movies or spend too much time gossiping. So that's unhealthy craving we have. But under this unhealthy craving, beneath it, there is a healthy need. So what we need to do, thoughtful abstinence means, okay, like some people drink. Now some people may know that drinking is bad, but maybe they want to hang out with the cool kids in college, and the cool kids drink supposedly. So the desire to be cool makes them a fool, isn't it? So they are not so much drinking because they like drinking, but because they want a sense of belonging. They want to be included in a particular social circle. So the unhealthy craving might be drinking, but the healthy need under that is belonging. I want to be a part of a friend circle. Or say, somebody may just spend a lot of time on TV because on movies and social media because they just feel bored and they need a break. Now, we are not machines. We all need breaks. That's a genuine need. So rather than simply trying to suppress that unhealthy craving, when we are thoughtful, we start going deeper. Not just, oh, I want this and I shouldn't be wanting this. Rather, we look deeper. What need is this fulfilling for me? So once we discover that, then what happens is, we can find a healthy way to fulfill that need. And then that craving will be addressed fundamentally. So each one of, so suppose somebody feels very lonely, and their cure for loneliness is just maybe drinking or watching movies or just gossiping on social media or whatever. Okay, now how do you deal with loneliness? Make friends, make good friends. No, sometimes there are friends who make us feel even more lonely. Isn't it? See, there is one loneliness when we are alone. There's a worse loneliness when we are surrounded by people who don't understand us. Worse is they don't even care to understand us. They simply judge and label us. So it's better to better to be alone than to be surrounded with such people who don't understand us. But if we can cultivate good friends, then that need for loneliness is addressed. So social media was meant to promise us that, okay, it'll actually it'll help us connect with more people. And yes, sometimes it does. But it's generally very difficult through digital media to have very deep friendships. So what happens is we may have many nominal friends, but very few actual friends. So that's a social media sometimes makes people asocial and even antisocial. It's too much. I'm not here criticizing social media per se, but it's anything in excess becomes a big problem. So the point is that we look deeper to understand what is the need that this particular behavior is serving. And then we find a healthier way to address that need. then it will be much easier for us to abstain from that thing. So I'll conclude with one example over here. See, for all of us, there are things that feel good, and there are things that are good for us. There is food that is healthy, and there is food that is tasty. Now, if these two circles were identical, life would be so easy. If all the tasty food were healthy, it would be so easy. They are not identical, but that does not mean that they are completely non-intersecting. There are places where these two intersect. Now, say, okay, I feel bored, I feel down, I need a break. Now, when we need a break, if we go only in this direction, that can become destructive. So, for example, I need a break. So, here the things which are feel good for me. So, if I only look for the things that feel good, then I will end up wasting my time and I'll get addicted to those things. But during a break, if I try to do something that is good but that does not feel good, then that will be difficult for us. Like, am I already tired? I already need a break, and you are telling me to do something which is even more difficult. I can't do it. So that's why we need to find something over here. We need to find something which is at the intersection of what feels good and what is good. We all can find some foods that are healthy, but to our tongue they are also tasty. They may not be tasty for someone else, but they are tasty for us. If you can find that, then even if we overeat that food a little bit, it's not such a big problem. So similarly for us, we need to find this intersection. And then the abstinence will become easier. When that craving comes up, we're not simply saying no to that craving. We're trying to find out, okay, I need a break. In the past, whenever I need a break, okay, I would just watch some movies. Okay, but I like music. And maybe, I know bhakti is good for me. So maybe I could hear some bhakti music. That is calming, that is relaxing, that is rejuvenating. But it is also good for me. So what happens is each one of us, that's why I said thoughtful or artful. I use the word art specifically because each one of us has to master the art of dealing with our mind. Because what lies at the intersection of what feels good and is good will be different for each one of us. It may not be the same. It mostly will not be the same. For somebody, music might be, somebody likes words. Somebody likes maybe art or drawing. Somebody just has some time, they start doing some doodling, they start doing some devotional art. Some people like to do some creative things. They start doing that. So if we can find out, okay, there will be this initial nectar, but after the poison is coming. Now, how do I let go of that nectar? Because that nectar seems very attractive. But what is that nectar doing? It is an unhealthy way of addressing a healthy need. So if you can find a healthier way, then that will become much easier. So bhakti provides us many variegated activities with which we can address our deeper needs in a healthier way. If you want a break, there are many devotional activities which are relaxing, which are uplifting. If we feel down, in bhakti also we can have spiritual friends. That association will address our need for company, of a relationship, for friendship, but in a way that is not damaging for us. In this way, each one of us can work toward making our mind our friend. And when the mind becomes our friend, that is the time we become empowered. See, what happens is presently we are here, our mind is here. Of course, sometimes the mind may be like this also. It's bigger than us. But what happens is, even if we assume that the mind is smaller than us, it's like we are pushing in one direction the mind is pushing in another direction. So we may be functioning basically at 10% of our capacity. Why? Because there's so much inner resistance, inner distraction. So this is a state not of being empowered, this is a state of being disempowered. But when we change, then what happens is, when we can nurture our mind, then what will happen is, our mind will start becoming our friend. And then we'll find that in the same time we'll be able to do so much more. Because the inner friction, the inner opposition will decrease. And all of you, you have achieved some things in your life. The very fact that you are here shows that you have good intelligence. You have achieved some things in your life. Now imagine with the mind opposing you also, you have achieved something worthwhile. If you could change your mind and make your mind your friend, how much more can you achieve? How much more can you contribute? How much more good can you do for yourself and for the world at large? Discovering how much good we can do, that can be our life's greatest adventure. Each one of us, we want our life to be exciting, adventurous. But discovering how much good we can do, then our mind becomes our friend. When we become empowered, that can make our entire life into an adventure. And it is that adventure that the Bhagavad Gita calls each one of us to. That Arjuna becomes confident, raising his bow in readiness to fight. At the end of hearing the Bhagavad Gita, life is like a fight. And in the Bhagavad Gita's wisdom, we all can become empowered to fight confidently and emerge victoriously through our journey of life. So I'll summarize what I discussed. I discussed 2 points: nature of the mind and the nurture of the mind. So in nature of the mind, I discussed about its position. In position, I explained how the mind is like a screen inside us through which we see things in the outer world and outer information comes in. But its disposition is that the mind, if I am here, the mind is here. What the mind does is, it looks at the initial poison and it says no. This is with respect to constructive pleasures. And then with respect to destructive pleasures, what it does is, it looks at the initial nectar and it says, yes, this is what I want. And this way, the mind distorts our perception and it can destroy our life. So, we discussed, what do we want to do? Nurture our mind. So, how do we nurture? 2 principles. Does anyone remember? Persistence and abstinence. So, persistence means that there is this initial poison and nectar after that. So, we persist through this. And the wonderful thing is that if we persist, what will happen is eventually the poison will become smaller, the nectar will become more. And the key to such persistence is that we need to be purposeful. We all want pleasure, but we want a life of purpose and meaning and value much more than just pleasure. We don't just want to watch comedy shows for the rest of our life. So if we can cultivate a purpose, and God, the Gita tells us that God has a purpose for the lives of each one of us. So the talents that we have, they're meant to do good for us and good for the world. And then with respect to abstinence, what we discussed is that what do we do? This abstinence, that means, say initially there is nectar but there is poison. So what we need to do is, our mind may rush towards here, but if we can get our mind to see this, then it will say no. As long as it says seeing this initial nectar, it will keep saying yes. So So how do we get its vision to move like this? That it's not just by saying, oh, this will lead to terrible things, this will lead to terrible things. Don't do it. What we need to do is, there is a unhealthy craving, but underlying that unhealthy craving, what is there? Healthy need. So that's why if we are artful, I use the word thoughtful and artful. So thoughtful, we need to be, to go deeper. Hey, why am I doing this? It's not just because I'm a foolish person. It's not just because I'm a bad person. What need is this serving? So discovering this is being thoughtful. And then we find a healthy way to address this need. And that means we find the intersection of what is good and what feels good. And if we focus on this, then we'll find that it's much easier for us to say no, because that underlying need is being addressed. And this discovering the intersection of what is good and feels good for us, that is an art. Each one of us is to observe ourselves and find out that intersection, and that way we all can become empowered. So empowered means that our mind will start working with us instead of against us, and that can make our whole life into an adventure of discovering how much good we can do for ourselves and for our world at large. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for the enlightening session on managing the mind through the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. So, although Prabhuji is very busy, he is traveling in many continents and giving sessions in many of the Fortune 500 companies. Prabhuji has given his valuable association to us. So, I would like all of you to thank Prabhuji with a big round of applause. So we have a couple of very important announcements, and we also have a short quiz prepared for all of you based on today's session. So it will be a 5-minute quiz, and the top 3 performers will also receive prize. But before we go to the quiz, we will also have the most awaited question answer session. So if you want to ask any questions, so Prabhuji is available taking your questions. So, Hare Krishna. So can we have the, yeah, they are raising the hand. Can we have the mic sent to them? Just a minute, the mic will come to you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
I asked a question.
Yeah.
And so the session was very wonderful, and we have to not look at immediate things, and we should see for the long-lasting things. And my question is, so when we hear some such enlightening sessions, and we start working on in this path, so but as the time progresses, and I feel like personally, so the motivation goes down, and sometimes we fall prey to the things which I'm not ready to do. So how can I abstain, get rid of this kind of mentality?
See, if we consider the mind, there are lots of things in this world which will keep fueling the destructive impulses within the mind. The destructive impulses. There are so many temptations, so many distractions. So they will keep fueling them. If I light a fire, then if I don't fuel the fire, it's going to die out. So similarly for us, say when we hear talks like this, that's like lighting a fire. But it is unrealistic for us to expect that the fire will automatically keep going on. We need to fuel the fire. How do we fuel the fire? By repeatedly hearing stuff like this. That's why satsang is not a one-time activity. It's a regular activity. So we regularly come for spiritual programs, they inspire us, they uplift us. And we can maybe take some key points from sessions like this, put them in our own words, and keep those that writing in our phone, or in somewhere in a pocket diary, and reread it. So basically, the fire of motivation that has been lit, the fire of inspiration, the aspiration to change for the better that has been lit, we should expect that that fire will diminish with time. So don't feel disappointed. Don't think, oh, I am a bad person because it's going down. It actually happens with everyone. We need to fuel it again. So if we anticipate that this is going to go down, what is the fuel that I'm going to give? What is the fuel that I'm going to give this? And then prepare for having that fuel. Then we'll find that the fire may go down, but it will blaze again. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thank you for the wonderful session. Provided a lot of clarity and stability to the unstable mind. I had a question regarding the diagram actually. So I understood the position of the soul, the position of the mind, and the position of the senses. And I just wanted to understand where exactly is the position of the false ego. False ego and exactly what are the dynamics, false ego and intelligence, and the dynamics involved in any particular decision making. So if we take a particular decision where we have a sense object, and where exactly is the intelligence, what is the role of the intelligence, the false ego, and the mind in a particular decision?
Okay, so I focused today on a minimalist model. Like the drama was about me and my mind. So it was not me, my ego, and my intelligence and my mind. Isn't it? Thank you. So the point is that every model, every analytical framework, it can be expanded if you want it. Like if you want to look at the map of India, you can get a broad understanding, say Kashmir is up and say Kanyakumari is down. Now if you zoom in on the map, you can see hundreds of more details. So it's, what is our purpose? Depending on our purpose, we zoom into the map with more or less frequency. So if we are just passing through a city, if we are driving cross country, then we don't need to know the details of the various streets and everything in the city. Just what is the path into the city, what is the path out of the city. If we are going to be in that city, then we have to zoom in if we are using Google Maps. Okay, what all is there in that city? So today we focused on the minimalist model. Just understand there is something inside us that works against us. And how do we manage that? So now if we want to zoom in, I won't go too much into it right now because that's a whole separate session. But intelligence is the part within us which is capable of farsightedness. The mind is short-sighted. That's just the nature. But the intelligence is the part within us which is capable of being farsighted. And to the extent we develop that intelligence, then we also become farsighted. Now the ego is what links the soul with the body-mind mechanism. I said the mind links the soul with the body. But what is it that links the soul with the mind-body, the whole thing? That is the ego. It's like somebody is playing a video game, then there is a screen on which maybe they are playing a Grand Auto Theft or whatever kind of game they are playing. But on a screen, there is whatever, okay, this car is moving here, this car is moving there, this is happening, all that is happening. So that screen is like the mind. But suppose somebody is in something like a dark room, or some people have a gaming room itself, where everything is dark, maybe their vision is glued to the screen. They can't even see anything else. So what glues the person to that screen, that is the ego. So the ego is the foundational link between spirit and matter. Matter means both grows and between body and mind together. Okay? But that's a whole different subject. For us to understand and transform ourselves, even this minimalist model is at a starting level good enough. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Actually, Guruji, for your wonderful session, I need to ask some question that I sometimes used to procrastinate the things in my life, and then later I used to feel guilty for it. So
Feel
how,
guilty.
yeah, guilty for it. So how I need to overcome this problem?
Okay.
Hare Krishna. So thank you very much, Guruji, for
Okay. He has a question about procrastinating and you don't want to procrastinate. Okay. So I'll also not procrastinate. I'll try to answer briefly. See, the point is, at a fundamental level, we have to accept where we are right now. We can't expect that we'll change overnight. So it's like, if I am here and I want to be here, our present situation and our aspiration. So what happens is, if from here I try to take a high jump and then I go further down. So I have some unhealthy behavior, but if I don't accept, no, I should be there. See my friend, he never procrastinates. And I procrastinate and we just try to force ourselves to improve very much. And when we can't, then the same mind which says, do that. The same mind says, jump up over there. What a fool you are useless. You saw in that drama, what happened was, first the mind only said that, oh, watch this movie, play this game. And when the results came, you are such a fool. What have you done with your life? What are you going to face to your parents? So what happens is, that initial craving for instant improvement, that is also a trick of the mind. What happens is, when I seek instant improvement, the Gita says that shanai shanai uparamit, gradually, step by step. Instant improvement is basically a step to further degradation. So what we need to do is, if I am here, I want to get here, that's a good desire. But small steps. Small steps. Shanai shanai ruparamid. Okay. If I tend to procrastinate. Okay, so can I decrease the procrastination slightly? So if I do something today, if I could do something today but I postpone it till just the last moment. Okay, I tend to postpone it for 7 days. Maybe I can postpone it for 6.5 days. So 6 days. Now say if I decide I want to wake up at say 5 o'clock in the morning. And then we set the alarm. And then when the alarm goes, the only thing that happens, we get angry with the alarm only. Just knock it closed. And then maybe wake up at 6:30 and you think, what a fool I am, I didn't wake up at 6:30. Anyway, I'm such a fool, I wasted my time, let me go to sleep again. And then we could have woken up at 6:30, then wake up at 9 o'clock. Okay, then maybe decide that if say my regular time of waking up is 7 o'clock. If I suddenly try to wake up at 5 o'clock, it doesn't work. So make it 6:45. See, the key to transforming ourselves, you said the key is trusting ourselves. Trusting ourselves means not that we trust all our judgments and decisions, but we trust ourselves enough that I am transformable. Otherwise, I start thinking I'm hopeless, I just can't do this only. And the key to trusting ourselves is showing we are trustworthy. Just like, see, when will we trust someone else? If they show that they trust you. They say, I'll come at this time, they come at that time. They say, I'll do this work, and they do that work. So similarly for us, we have to earn our own trust. So if I wake up at 7 o'clock and I plan I'll wake up at 5 o'clock, and I don't wake up and I beat myself but I feel guilty for it. So all that is happening is that craving for instant improvement, say from 7 to 5, That itself is a trick of the mind. And then making me get frustrated and sleep till 9 o'clock, that is also a second trick of the mind. So, okay, 7, can I wake at 6:45? Yeah, 15 minutes is not that difficult, I can do that. So then do that. Do that for 1 week, do that for 10 days. And then after that, just appreciate it. Not in a proud sense, but good job. Yeah, I set a goal, I achieved it. Then we become trustworthy in our own eyes. And at 6:45, you can come to 6:30. So in general, if now the New Year is coming, and sometimes some people say, I'll make 100 resolutions. Well, those are not 100 resolutions, that is a wish list. It's not a resolution. So make resolutions that you yourself feel reasonably confident that you can keep. Now we may have many resolutions we want to make for improving ourselves. But so think of what, yeah, I can do this. So what happens by this is when we do something, we start earning our own trust. Yes, this can be done. I can do this. Yeah, and then start with small resolutions. Start with doable resolutions, small steps in those doable resolutions. And then gradually move towards bigger resolutions. So if you are procrastinating, just take small steps. And instead of taking big steps and feeling guilty, just take small steps and encourage and appreciate ourselves. Good job. We don't want to become proud. Yeah, there's a say, if I've climbed from here to here, it's good. But see, if we look back, we'll feel good. Yeah, I did something. But if you start feeling proud, look up, we'll become humble then. So, appreciating ourselves is not becoming proud. Yes, it's a long way to go, but I have come some way along. So that way we move forward. So it's important that we all need to learn to trust ourselves. We earn our trust by doing the things that are doable for us. Okay? So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Itai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari.
Thank you for very patiently answering all our questions. So now we have a couple of announcements of the upcoming program from IBX South Bangalore. So please display the QR code. So after this session of managing the mind, the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, the upcoming session from ISKCON Youth Forum will be Gita in a nutshell. So this is the QR code that I have. Can you please show the QR code? If you show that, you can scan this QR code and join the Jagriti group. And all the information of the upcoming session will be shared in this group. I hope all of you have joined the group. So the scan is also available outside. So you can scan later on also. Suppose it's not able to detect right now. So this is our next session, which will be starting from Jan of 7th. That is Gita in a nutshell. So there are 4 powerful sessions every Saturday. These are theme-based sessions on Bhagavad Gita. So we invite all of you to be a part of this, starting from January 7th. Every Saturday we will have this session. So I request all of you to join the group, and in that group further information will be posted regarding these sessions. Further, I would also like to tell that Prabhuji has written many books which are based on Bhagavad Gita and many other philosophical books. So all the books written by Prabhuji are available here for purchase. So if you are going to take the books today, so Prabhuji, you could also get autograph from Prabhuji. So the latest book that Prabhuji has written is "You Are Not Your Mind, You Are Better." So this is a book that analyzes the topic of managing the mind in more detail through the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. And this book is available here. You can, the table is over here, the book counter. You can take books for yourself and you can get them autographed by Prabhuji if you so desire. So thank you very much, Prabhuji, for the session. And finally, we also would like to invite you for our tomorrow's um, New Year Kirtan and Food Mela, which starts at 5:30 p.m. tomorrow here in ISKCON South Bengaluru. So please be there. You are all invited. So finally, towards the conclusion of this session, I would like to first of all thank His Grace Chaitanya Prabhu for giving this valuable association for us. We have been very fortunate to have him. We would also like to thank our special guests, the professors from BNMIT College, Professor Pratibha and Anil Kumar sir for gracing us with their presence. I would like to thank His Grace Vardhavar Raidu, Director of ISKCON Youth Forum, without whose guidance we could have not done these sessions. We could have not even invited Guruji. And I would also like to thank our IYF team who worked day in and day out to make these sessions possible. But finally, last but not the least, most importantly, I would like to thank all you audience because it is a New Year weekend and still you have come here and encouraged us with your presence. Thank you very much. Our event was successful because of your presence. Hare Krishna. So you can take books and you can proceed to the main temple hall. So we will be having final kirtan of the session over there, and then we can proceed from there. Hare Krishna.